Hey everybody, and welcome back to my channel. It's now time for another favourites video, my first one for 2019. These videos seemed to work out very well last year. They're a nice easy way for me to summarise what I've been doing during the month, and people seem to enjoy watching them, so I'm going to continue doing them this year and I hope you continue to enjoy them. As always, I'm not sponsored or affiliated by anyone who I mention in this video, be they individuals or companies or whatever. I just tell you about these things because I want to, because I enjoyed them. So all opinions are my own and all that jazz. So yeah, there are a few bits and pieces to mention for January. It was a very busy month. At work it was busy, so it's kind of delayed me on the blogging front a little bit. But there are also various little bits and pieces that I can tell you about from the month. So let's crack on with it, and I hope you enjoy it. So because it's been cold and wet and windy outside, being typical winter weather, museums have been a good place to go to, as always, at this time of year. As they are any time of year, but especially in winter, they're a nice place to escape to. So I've been to a few this month. And the most significant one was the Tate Modern. Me and my friend Claire went there for a day to the Annie Albers exhibition, which is an exhibition of woven artworks. Annie Albers was a big specialist weaver, and she's got some beautiful artworks in the exhibition. And we had an audio described tour of the exhibition, which was really, really good, really interesting. And then we had a conductive coding workshop where we were able to weave our own creations and then hook them up to a computer. We had these little looms on which there was some conductive thread already woven across it. And then going kind of perpendicular to it, we were able to weave our own creations into it using any materials we wanted and any colours we wanted. I mean, I've still got some wool here, some rainbow coloured wool and a bit of white wool that we had at the time that I've kept. And yeah, we were just able to weave that into our creation. And then we were able to take it up to the researchers at the front of the room, because this was all part of a research project to see how people interact with like electronic textiles. So by hooking it up to a computer using a little machine, a little bit like a Raspberry Pi, I think it's an Arduino or something like that it was called, we were able to kind of handle our woven creations, squeeze them and stroke them to make sounds. The computer would respond with musical notes as we were kind of handling it and grasping it. And the researchers were looking at how we interacted with the artworks to do that. So that was quite interesting. I mean, I didn't think I'd be very good at weaving or anything like that. I'm not particularly creative, but Claire and I worked on one together, so I wasn't on my own trying to create something. And it worked out really well. We were very pleased with what we came up with. It was just a really fun and interesting day. We really enjoyed ourselves. I've done a whole blog post talking about it in detail. There's going to be a blog post about these favourites in general, as there always is. But for this particular thing, there is a whole blog post about my experience at the Tate Modern. So you can go and read about that if you want all the detail and some photos from there. And then the next museum I went to was the Design Museum, where I had another audio described tour. This was of their Home Futures exhibition, which basically shows how architects in decades gone by imagined how homes of the future might look, the sort of things we might have in the homes of the future. So there's some quite weird things in there. There's a sofa that looks like a big pair of red lips. There was a big coat stand, hat stand thing that looked like a big cactus. There was a modular kind of cupboard thing almost that you could kind of pull things in and out of to make it a shower or a toilet or a bed. You know, you could do anything you want with it. There was a bed that you put together yourself, a bit like you do from places like IKEA now, but this was before IKEA existed, and all sorts of varying things like that. So that was quite interesting, quite different. And we were allowed to touch things and sit on things. That was quite good. And then there was a little workshop after that as well, where we were allowed to design our own things for the future, you know, how we would like to see homes in the future. Again, I'm not particularly creative, so I didn't draw anything myself, but there was someone with me who did, and I quite enjoyed what they created, like an inflatable bed that's kind of held up by Velcro straps, which was quite a novel idea. But yeah, it was an interesting day. It wasn't quite as good as the Tate Modern's day, and I don't think the tour, was quite as descriptive and didn't cover quite as much as the Tate Modern tour seemed to, but it was still good. It was still worth a look, and it was the first time I'd ever been to the Design Museum, so it would be nice to go back there and explore more of it, because there's quite a lot there. I also had a little walk through Holland Park, which is next door to that museum, and they've got a little Japanese garden in there called the Kyoto Garden. In the spring or summer, I imagine it'll look really beautiful, but even in the winter it looked quite nice. It felt quite calm and serene in there. It's got a nice little waterfall in there, for instance. So I had a nice little walk through there. It was kind of nice to get some fresh air and stretch my legs after the tour. And then the other museum I went to was the Museum of Brands. I went there with my friend Claire during the month again, and I'd never been there before, neither had she, but we thought it was worth checking out to see if it was any good or not, because it's a little known museum. It's near Ladbroke Grove Station, just round the corner. And yeah, we thought we'd check it out one afternoon. It's actually very interesting. We got absorbed in that for a good few hours. In particular, they've got what's called a time tunnel in there, which is this huge gallery you kind of walk through, and it takes you from Victorian times right up to the present day. and it showcases thousands of different like consumer goods from across all the decades. And it's really, really interesting because it starts off as a nice history lesson of the products that people used to have, and then as it gets closer and closer to times that you remember, it becomes a real feast of nostalgia. And there's just so much in there. You just get really kind of absorbed looking at everything. We must have been in that gallery for at least an hour or an hour and a half, I think, just slowly walking through looking at everything. And then they also had another big room as well where they had some more objects from the past, including a collection of like chocolate boxes and biscuit tins, a gallery of Time Out covers because Time Out is celebrating its 50th birthday, and there was a video screen in there as well showing old adverts. So we kind of watched all of those, and some of those we remembered and some of those we found quite memorable as well. There was a Murray's Mints adverts, for instance, and there was a Fairy Liquid advert and various adverts for cigarettes because you were allowed to advertise them in the old days, and there was a PG Tips advert for the monkeys and all sorts of things that kind of, like I say, an interesting slice of history, but also lots of great nostalgia in there as well. It's amazing how fondly you remember kind of some adverts and some old kind of products. We really enjoyed that. And while we're talking about museums, I've mentioned my friend Claire twice already, it's worth saying that Claire and I are actually dating now. We've been going out for 5 months, in fact, but we've kept it very quiet. We didn't want to broadcast it to the world straight away because we just wanted to enjoy each other's company in private and see how things went. And it's been going very, very well, I'm happy to say. We met last year. A mutual friend of ours put us in touch, and Claire was able to read my blog to find out all about me, of course. And yeah, we just got chatting, and we eventually decided to meet up as friends as it became apparent that we had mutual interests. So we went to a museum together, then we went to a few more museums and a couple of theatre shows, and it just evolved from there. We just had a discussion one day and we realised we had developed similar feelings for each other, and we just thought we'd decide to see how it goes. And 5 months on, it's going very, very well. I love Claire very much. She's fun and chatty and caring and beautiful and everything you could possibly want. And I know she's watching this as well, so I'm not going to embarrass her too much, but I'm very happy with how things are going. Thank you, Claire, for making these last few months so special, and I'm looking forward to seeing what future months bring. And yeah, I just wanted to get that out there really. Now we're happy to announce it. I'm not going to make a big deal out of it on the blog going forward because it's very personal to us, but I wanted to get it out there that yes, we are dating, we are going out. I'm very happy that I've got a girlfriend so soon after moving here. I've only been here a couple of years, so I feel very, very fortunate to have found someone so special in such a relatively short space of time. So it just goes to show that it really is worth getting yourself out there and meeting people who share common interests to you, because you never know what it will lead to. I've also been going to various social groups as per usual, of course. The London Vision groups like East London Vision and South East London Vision have now all merged into one London Vision organisation. And you still do get the individual groups for each of those areas, but they're now called London Vision East and London Vision South East. It just keeps all the branding consistent, it keeps all the information in one place because now there's only one website and one Facebook page, one Twitter page, etc. Makes it a lot easier to see what's going on, makes it a lot easier to get in contact with the organisation if you want to get involved. So with London Vision East, I joined the Newham group for their New Year party, which was good fun. There was lots of good food and drink there and some good music, and it was a great chance to catch up with some friends, especially some people I hadn't seen for quite a while. It was lovely to chat to them again. And there is actually a brief clip of me dancing and singing in the disco as well there, to Wham, I believe. But yeah, it was really good fun. It was a really nice afternoon. And I went to a social with London Vision South East as well. We went to a pub near the Old Vic. That was good fun. And I've also met up with the London Sports Club for the Blind as well. We went to another of our bowling nights, which was good fun. I don't go to them every single month, but I do try and go to a few. And I also joined the non-disabled group, Thinking Bob. This is a social group where anyone in London can be a part of it. I've mentioned them before because the first year I was in London, I went to their events a lot. And then last year, I barely went to any. I only did a couple in January and February, I think. So it's been about a year since I last met up with those guys, but I went to their Cards Against Humanity night in January. That was great fun as always. It's a brilliant game. Obviously, if you're a child or you're easily offended, then you certainly can't go anywhere near it. But it is really, really fun. It's always a good laugh, that game. So yeah, I've had quite a lot of fun at social events, and also I've been going out with various personal friends as well. And then moving on to stuff at home, I upgraded my Mac during the month to version 10.14 of the operating system, which is called Mojave. And it works absolutely fine. I left it a little while after the initial release, as I always do, because you never know if they've got to wind out bugs and stuff like that. But now I have installed it. It's working absolutely fine. There's no problems with it. It's got some interesting new features as well. They've put a dark mode in there, which makes all the dialog boxes and menus and the backgrounds of some of the apps a dark colour and the text light, which is a bit like the invert colours option, but it doesn't invert everything. This is the issue I have with it. It doesn't turn the backgrounds of websites a darker colour, so they're still bright white, so I still get a lot of glare if I'm browsing the internet, for instance. So I still use the invert colours option because it inverts absolutely everything. But obviously I have to turn it off when I'm looking at pictures and videos. But in that instance, like YouTube had its own dark mode built into the website anyway, which I can turn on, and I have turned on. So I can turn off invert colours for that, but the website colours on YouTube are still inverted, but the videos are the right way around. Likewise, Twitter has its own night mode that I use now, which means I can see all the images and videos in the timeline the right way around, rather than having to keep flicking backwards and forwards all the time if I want to see things. There's also a screenshots utility now. I mean, you've always been able to take screenshots on Macs, but this is more convenient. It's in the dock, so you can just click on it and you can select various options for selecting part of the screen, or you can record the screen, again a portion of it or the whole thing. And there are various options you can set. You can set a time delay, for instance, before it starts recording or taking a photo. So that's really nice and easy. It makes things very simple. And there's also something called a continuity camera, which means that you can take a photo on your phone and it will just go straight onto the computer without you having to transfer it yourself. It just basically uses your phone as the camera but stores the image on the computer directly. There are also now things called quick actions in the Finder, so when you're browsing for files you can perform very quick little adjustments or edits to files without opening the apps that they're associated with, just very basic things. So that's quite a nice little touch. And they've also put the news app on the Mac as well now. It's been on the iPhone for a little while, but now they've got the equivalent on the desktop on the Mac. And it's actually quite a nice way of just seeing a summary of the headlines from all your favourite sources. So yeah, I don't use the news app very often because, let's face it, the news is very dull at the moment. But it is useful for kind of keeping up to date. I also learned something else relating to my computer this month, and that's how to avoid getting static shocks off the damn thing. Because it's winter and I'm wearing quite static-inducing jumpers, and obviously my slippers are rubbing across the floor as I walk, and it's just quite dry air in general. I'm more prone to getting static shocks every time I touch the metal casing of my computer. It was getting a bit frustrating, as you can imagine, and it was happening when I was touching like the light switches sometimes as well. If I touch the screws on the light switches, they can give me a bit of a nip as well. But I figured out, thanks to a bit of Googling, that I could actually use my keys to get around it. So when I approach my computer, if I take hold of my keys and tap them against the metal casing of the computer first, then I can touch it straight away with my fingers because it's just discharged the electricity from my hands straight away. The other solution is to use the back of your hand to touch the casing with. You might still get a little shock that way, but because you haven't got many nerve endings there, you won't feel it as much as you do on your fingertips, because your fingertips have got lots of nerve endings, which is why you get quite big shocks there sometimes, because it's very, very sensitive. So you can use the back of your hand if you want a smaller shock, or you might not feel anything at all that way. Or you can use a coin apparently, but my keys seem to work well for me, so I'm quite happy doing that. So yeah, a little life hack for you. If you're getting static shocks off your computer or anything metal like that, tap a coin or your keys against it first before you touch it each time after you've been moving around, and you should find that it doesn't shock you anymore. And then moving on to things that I've been watching, and the big thing I watched on Netflix during the month was Bird Box, which a lot of visually impaired people have already been talking about online with good reason, so I'm not going to harp on about it too much because there's plenty of good videos out there discussing it. But it's basically a thriller starring Sandra Bullock about these supernatural entities who invade the earth and cause anybody who catches sight of them to kill themselves. So there's this big apocalypse, and the surviving characters have to be very careful, and they have to wear blindfolds whenever they go out and about, or even if they just open the windows to ensure they don't see these creatures. So it's very, very interesting. It's good fun. It's got a lot of tension in there. It's got some good action in there, and it gets quite emotional at times as well, obviously. And it's interesting to see how they adjust to having to cut off their sight like that. And I also appreciate the way they did the ending as well. I'm not going to spoil what the ending was, but I do appreciate what they did there. Obviously, it's not a documentary about what it's like to be visually impaired. It's a very extreme scenario, and it's obviously not realistic in that sense. So as long as you don't treat it like a documentary about visually impaired people, and you just watch it for the entertainment that it is, it's good fun. I wouldn't buy it to keep, but it's worth watching the once at least, certainly. So that's fine. But one thing that's resulted from that film that isn't so desirable is the Bird Box challenge, where people have basically been blindfolding themselves and having a go at doing things, which wouldn't be so bad if they were doing like small little tasks at home with somebody supervising them to make sure they were okay. But it's the internet, of course, so people are doing very stupid and dangerous things. There's even reports, of someone who drove a car and crashed it. It's just people putting themselves in danger and doing very stupid things, hurting themselves or others, or damaging property or whatever. And it's just amazing the lack of common sense that people have. But not only is it quite stupid what people are doing, but it also kind of reinforces the misconceptions around visually impaired people, because
people seem to think that if they put a blindfold on and they can't do anything, they assume that blind people can't do those things either as a consequence. But you can't equate the two, because if you're used to having sight and you immediately put a blindfold on, of course you're not going to be able to do most things because you're not used to it. Blind people have adapted because they've had to. They've found ways to adapt because there are ways to adapt. So you can't kind of treat that as documentary evidence, just putting a blindfold on. If you want to find out what it's like for a visually impaired person to live their life, talk to them, spend a day with them, spend a day with them, see how they cope, how they adjust to things, how they use things. It's like the image that was posted on Facebook recently of a blind girl using her phone, with people accusing her of faking it, because how can you have a long cane and a phone? Well, phones have assistive technology built in. I've made a video on this. Various other people have made posts about this. There was a lot of assistive technology built into phones, including speech and the ability to zoom the screen and change all sorts of screen settings to make it clearer, that mean we can all use phones. So being blind or visually impaired doesn't stop you from using technology. And it's still surprising how many people don't realise that. So there's a hashtag going around, blind people use phones, where people have been showing selfies of themselves using the phones. So, there's clearly a lot of education that still needs to go on out there, and the Bird Box Challenge hasn't really helped in that sense. So, hopefully we can just keep raising awareness and let people know that, yes, we can do things, we can adapt. Putting on a blindfold isn't going to help you understand us, because you're not comparing like with like still. So, that's my very brief thoughts on the subject, but I will link to some videos in the description below as well. And you can go and watch those and get a good flavour for what people are saying about it. And then the other big drama I've been watching this month is Outlander on Amazon. That's just finished its 4th season and has been very good as always. Lots of twists and turns and drama and action in the story as usual. It's very emotional in places, as it tends to be. And visually it's always stunning as well. And the music is always beautiful. They always adapt the theme tune each series depending on where it's set. And also the music used during the show is great as well. I mean, there was one episode towards the end of this season where they used Barber's Adagio for strings to very, very profound effect. It was only meant to be temp music, apparently. They stick a temp music track on until they get the actual music in for the scene, but they liked it so much they kept it in, and it worked really, really well. So it's a really, really good show, that. I mean, if you're going to watch it, do it from the beginning, otherwise it's not going to completely make sense. But season 4 was very, very good. I'm very glad I watched that. And then moving on to comedy, and the sitcom I've been particularly obsessed with this month is 2.4 Children, which Gold have been repeating in its entirety from series 1, which is brilliant because it's never been released on DVD in full before. So this is a very rare chance to see it. Series 1 to 3 were released back in 2005, but they never released series 4 to 8 because they didn't have enough sales to cover the clearance costs. That's what the claim was at the time, because not only do they have music costs to pay for, but there are also visual aspects as well. In particular, apparently one sticking point was the use of a reproduction Fab 1 car from Thunderbirds in Series 7, which can't be removed without destroying the episode in question, but they can't afford the clearance cost for it either. But then the writer Andrew Marshall said that all the episodes were released in clearable worldwide editions, so there shouldn't be an issue. So I don't know what's going on there. I don't know if that's true or not, but that's what I've read online. So this is a rare chance to see it. If you don't know 2.4 Children, it's a classic but very underrated sitcom from the 90s. Basically, you've got a family of 4, Bill and Ben, the parents, and David and Jenny, their children, and they get themselves into these really bizarre situations, even though they're this ordinary family, like having an inflatable Pope in their living room, or meeting Annika Rice while she's out and about doing a challenge for Challenge Annika, or going on a holiday trying to run away from a hurricane that's kind of got Bill's name on it. And they had this kind of eerie premonition by hearing this voice saying, "Don't go Maya," before they went. It makes sense if you see the show. They've killed their neighbours' pets on multiple occasions without meaning to. They've also put a goldfish in a blender by accident, and then they tried to break the 4th wall to show us how it was done. But even that was false because they then put the fish in the microwave by accident. Ben found himself in a reenactment of The Prisoner, while in the same episode, Bill found herself dressing up in Shirley Bassey's frocks in a dress warehouse with her friend Rona, who also makes a regular appearance in the show. There are also musical numbers in the show. There's one episode where they perform a Blues Brothers number on stage, and also in every Christmas special they used to perform a musical number at the end. So it was very weird like that, but it was very, very funny because of it. There's so many moments like that in the show, but there's also a heart to it as well, because there was often drama in there and emotion too, because you had Jenny's battle with bulimia, David nearly dying from tetanus, the house was destroyed by fire. All bits and pieces like that all kind of made it very real and just added a heart to the show, like I say. So, you weren't ever allowed to forget that it was, real people still. It wasn't so out there. It wasn't cartoonish or anything like that. These are things that could happen to people. So it wasn't afraid to kind of explore slightly darker territory as it went along. Andrew Marshall's writing partner, in fact, at one stage was David Renwick, who wrote One Foot in the Grave. And if you know One Foot in the Grave, then this is kind of similar in style in that sense, where you've got ordinary people getting themselves into bizarre situations, but there's also kind of a heart and a drama to it as well. So yeah, 2.4 Children is very, very good, and I wish the BBC or network distributing or somebody would release them all on DVD, because it deserves to be out there for people to buy and to see properly. It's a great shame that it hasn't been yet. So please, somebody release 2.4 Children, all of it, on DVD. That would be fantastic. I've also finished watching The Big Bang Theory season 11 on Blu-ray, and now the second half of season 12, the very final season, is going to be starting on E4 very, very soon. So that's good. It's going to be a shame when the show ends, but I'd rather they go out on a high. And I've also finished watching Family Guy season 18 on DVD. That's been good fun as always. I've also bought a few new things this month as well. So my big purchase has been the Super Deluxe edition of the White Album by the Beatles, the 50th anniversary edition. So they've got a remastered version of the album on there, plus various session tracks and demo tracks and other rarities. So that's been really good to listen to and work my way through. And I've also bought the box set of Red Dwarf Series 1 to 8 on Blu-ray, which I've been enjoying watching. It's been great to revisit all those old episodes because I haven't watched many of them for quite a while. And I've also bought Doctor Who Series 11 on Blu-ray, which is the most recent series starring Jodie Whittaker. So it'll be good to watch that again. I haven't got around to that yet, but I'm looking forward to rewatching those episodes. I'm going to be doing unboxings and reviews here on my channel and on my blog in due course, so I'm not going to go into detail about them here and now. And then finally, I just want to mention something that's coming up in March. On the 26th and 27th of March at the Birmingham NEC, it's this year's Naidex show, and that's Europe's largest event dedicated to disability and independent living. So you get exhibitors and speakers and panel discussions and demonstrations for all sorts of disabilities, including visual impairments. So it's a really, really interesting show. I went to last year's show for 2 days, and it was really, really interesting to look around. I posted a comprehensive review in my blog that I'll link to, and I'll obviously post a link to information about this year's show. And one of the speakers this year, in fact, is Warwick Davis. So you've got a celebrity there as well. He was there last year as well. He wasn't a speaker last year, but he did turn up last year to have a look around. So that was cool. But yeah, I'm not being paid or gifted to mention them. We just promote each other on social media because I'm one of the ambassadors for them. So they give my blog and my YouTube channel a plug, and I give them a plug in return, which is fair enough. But yeah, it's a genuinely interesting show. I did really enjoy it last year. So I encourage you to go along if you get the chance to, because it is really worth a look around. You do learn quite a lot there. And that's it. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed that little recap of the month. As I say, I've got reviews I want to do for the Beatles and Red Dwarf and Doctor Who box sets. And there's one or two other things I want to post on my blog as well. So keep an eye on my blog and my channel in the coming weeks. But thank you very much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. Don't forget to like, comment and subscribe. And I will see you for another video very soon. Bye.